This is CPAD's graduate online teaching practicum presentations for this month of April. And we are very excited to welcome three presenters. Yang Deng and Rui Wang will be presenting Diversity and Inclusion, a study of international students' experiences at the Penn State Stockman School. And Maggie Rose Condit Summerson will be presenting Generating Participatory Glitch Art in the Classroom. So I will let them introduce themselves, and then after each presentation, we can follow up with questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So Yan, do you want me to share the screen, or you want to do that?
I can go ahead and share, and I also want to test out that if you're able to remotely control, so that we both can click on the slides.
Good.
All right. And then I think, Ray, we can start introduce ourselves if you want to.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ray Wang, and I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in Department of Landscape Architecture at School of Arts and Architecture. So my own research interests are related to the green infrastructure and human perception about those landscape facilities and also the human behavior. Yang, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Yang, and I'm a PhD candidate in art education at Penn State School of Visual Art. Maggie and I is from the same school, and this is it's my first collaboration project with someone not in the art ed. So it's been very interesting journey, and really have a great collaboration with her. So we are so excited that we can share our project here, and thank you, Anna, for inviting us and give this opportunity to us.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Yeah, before we begin, we also want to thank the Stockman Diversity and Inclusion Fellowship Project for giving us this great opportunity to promote awareness for international students. It's not going down. Yeah, sure. Okay. So for today's presentation agenda, we will cover 4 sections: introduction, our project, and timeline and work, and we will conclude at the end. It's not going. Okay. So introduction. So we are focusing on the international student engagement experience at Stockman School, and as you can see, that data shows that the total international student enrollment number in arts and design fields almost doubled in the past 10 years across US colleges and universities. However, their existing research and surveys have given little attention to this community. You may notice that Yan and I are both international students, and we strongly feel that there's a need to bring this awareness of international student community at Stockman and of course the School of Visual Art. Sorry. Just hold on. So for our project, basically we are having 2 parts. So the one part is more about the research-based project, which involving the interviews and the surveys, asking what kind of engagement experience that international students at Stockman have. And there is another part really is to organize public-facing events to let everybody enjoy some kind of activities. So we have these 2 parts set up in this project. So we seek to understand 3 questions. Number 1, does Stockman School create an inclusive learning and engagement environment for the international students? Number 2, what are the challenges they're facing regarding their engagement experience at Stockman? And number 3, and how to better promote international student engagement experiences at Stockman School. So our participants are international undergraduate and graduate students at Stockman School. But for the second part, which is the public facing event, everybody at the Stockman and beyond are welcomed. So I'll let Yan to introduce the timeline and work.
Hey, thank you, Ray. So when we applied for this fellowship project in the spring 2021, we proposed a timeline. Ray, are you?
Yeah, sorry about this.
That's fine, because we both can control my computer.
Yeah, I want to see everybody's face, It's weird, like.
You know. Okay. So when we applied for our fellowship, we proposed a timeline. So most of our work has done following the timeline we proposed. So in each semester, we focus on a particular goal. In the summer 2021, we only focus on the preparation for the research so that we can conduct in the fall. And then our major goal in the fall is to recruit participants to collect data. And then in the spring semester, we focus on the public engagement work. So as Ray mentioned earlier that this project contains both elements of research and also public engagement. So we first need to finalize the budget so that we can get funding to recruit participants. And then we also design our survey and the interview questions and then put it into our research proposal so that it can send to the institutional review boards to approve our human subject research. And in the fall, we sent out the survey and then we received 23 response. We also recruit and conduct 13 individual interviews. And then we also collaborate with 3 graphic design students, in which this is not part of our plan. So it was a great success that we collaborate with the students, which I will show you what we collaborated later. And then of course we established our project website, which I'll also show you later. So within this survey, the participants who finish our questionnaire are there are 23 of them, but the overall data set we have is more skewed because 20 of them are females and then only 2 are male, and this one prefer not to answer, so remain unknown. And among these 23 people, the age range is from 19 to 36 years old, and then the median age is 24. So there are 20 of them holds F1 visa, which is type of non-immigration student visa in the US. And the 3 either have a green card or dual citizenship or remain unknown. So about these 23 participants in the survey, almost half of them had a pre-existing experience in the US. Either they traveled in the US or they study in the US. So this fact may also influence their experience when they study at Stockman School. From these 23 participants, there are 5 come from China and 5 from India. And these 2 countries population or student come from these 2 countries made up the majority of international student population in the US. And then there are 3 from Iran, 2 from Brazil, and the rest of the 8 students come from Bangladesh, Canada, Jordan, Mexico, Panama, and also Philippines, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. So these are the participants from our surveys. And with the collaboration that I mentioned earlier, that we have collaborated with 3 senior graphic design students, and these students were working on a course project to create a diversity-driven campaign for members from the underrepresented groups. So one of them reached out to me and asked whether I'm interested in their service. So I thought, hey, these students need a client to work on their course project, and me and Ray, we need designer to promote our project. So it was a win-win collaboration. When they asked for to promote our work, they also asked whether I can create drawings so that they can put into their work. So I'm gonna share you one of their website just to give you a visual idea of what they created. All right, so they made 2 parts of the project. One is they create deliverables for aims to do an exhibition, which are all conceptualized. They will deliver some kind of information that's useful for international students. And the way how they promote our final exhibition is through door wrapping. So these are the 2 conceptual ideas they had. with some kind of interesting guiding questions that can wrap on the doors. And they also photographed us to promote on their kind of the concept for a digital website. So the illustration I made is based on our survey finding. The 12 countries that I just talked about before, I look into all the countries' cultural patterns and I unite them together as a cloud. And this cloud is a Chinese cloud that it's a traditional symbol to bring richness. And because I believe international students bring rich cultural and rich knowledge into the campus, which is why I drew the Stockman family building at the part here. So that it's just my belief of how great international students can bring into the campus. And of course, I contextualize the figure in the era of COVID-19. So we love the idea of the door wrapping. However, the reality is it's too expensive to execute this idea. So we made an alternative idea, and which Ray, we're going to talk about that later. I'm going to come back to the presentation. All right, so I'm going to give the floor to Ray so that she can talk about our public engagement.
Thank you, Yang. So what we did in this spring was really to like wrap up our project, which we complete our data collection and also conduct the data analysis. So based on our interview and survey results, we sort of extracted the raw quotes from interview transcriptions and incorporate them into the posters and flyers and distribute them into in the Stockman family building as well as the Borland building. So everybody they pass by, they can read about international students' voice and experience to get a better understanding of this unique community. Also, based on the interview and the survey data, we initiate this public event called Game Time, which we designed 6 small fun games and let people form a team, and they can join as a team and they can also win the prize. So those like the overview of what we've done in this spring. So in the survey, we certainly have many questions, but we want to highlight this question. So in the survey, we specifically ask participants that whether Stockman School has created an inclusive environment for their studies as international students. And results show that about 78% of the participants somewhat agree or strongly agree that Stockman have created an inclusive environment. So we can conclude that Stockman did a great job on this. Yeah, kudos to Stockman. For the interview results, we've generated 7 themes, which there are more details in the on our website. If you are interested in, you can look at them. So here we want to highlight 3 quotes. Based on our participants' experience, they most of them feel very welcomed by Stockman, and also they specifically mentioned the faculty's their own international experience are very helpful. Sorry, for their engagement experience. And what interesting is that they also mentioned the design of Stockman building itself give a interactive environment to bring this community together. So the photos are on the left shows our working process of creating and printing the posters and flyers that I just mentioned, and how it was exhibited in this Stockman family building. So that's for the advertisement and quotes exhibition. So for the actual Game Time event, we get this idea from the survey results. So we, as you can see, they are we have this question asking what kind of activities you want at Stockman, and participants tell us that they want to have some casual gatherings and also they want to get more information about the competitions, grants, and scholarship and assistantship. But we found out that it is less likely that we can promote on these subjects. So we end up creating these fun activities for the Stockman members. Here are some photos regarding our game time event. Like I said, we have several fun games where the team can participate, or as well, of course, the individual can also play this game. We all provide free pizzas and sodas so they can eat and they can enjoying this fun moment. So the illustrations at the bottom was created by Yang again. Thank you so much for joining this. According to our participants, they all love this kind of illustrations because they are very helpful for them to understand the game rules and process. Yep. So Yan, can you include this?
Yes. So here at the part of the conclusion, I have to say that it's hard to tell everything about a whole year project in 20 minutes. So we just tried the best to show all the visuals of what we did. So in conclusion about our whole work, here's the QR code that you can scan that can access to our website directly. So while you listen to me get the conclusions. We, in the total, there are a number of 76 people that have been directly involved in this project. And then the public game event contributed to the student wellness well-being and also social interaction. And we get all the feedback from the students saying that they really enjoyed such a fun activity that is not only just based on lectures or seminar at schools. So this gave us a very, it makes us feel good that we give some kind of services that can bring everyone together. Our project also brings some critical insights into the enhancement that can suggest some inclusive teaching and learning experience at Stockman and beyond. So as if you usually remember what we talk about the 3 questions at the very beginning, what we try to know, the first question is, does the school create an inclusive environment for international students? And what we know now is yes, overall it is inclusive. Majority of them really love the setting, the structure, the design of the Stockman family building that gives kind of such a great interpersonal engagement experience. And also they love working as a team or a group that creates a communities that they felt like there's a way to belong in this community. And also some of them joined a cultural organization, but the experience kind of mixed. Some felt like it was useful, was helpful for them to engage, but some felt like it wasn't that helpful and useful. This varies by personal experience. The second question, we try to know what are the challenges affecting their engagement experience. And now we know that there's a great insecurity felt this kind of financial condition. And also there's a language barrier and also the coping with the different educational system. The bottom 2, language barrier and the coping is very common challenges among all the international students, if that despite whether you're a graduate student or undergraduate student. Yet the first insecurity feeling about the kind of financial condition is really happening around a majority around the graduate students. And I personally, even not at Stockman, at our education, I also felt the same way, and which I here really want to share a quote that I find is very, it speaks about the feeling of how majority of graduate students felt. Here's the quote. I never felt financially secure. Towards April and May every year, I start to get very stressed, and that builds on until June or July when funding is approved. So this happening every year, a circle of frustration every year. And this, I think, really speaks about not only international students, but also a majority of graduate students. So the third question we try to know is how to better promote their international student engagement at Stockman. So now what we can suggest to the Stockman School is that for the funding for the international graduate student, they hope that the funding mechanism can be more transparent. I think in the sense that they wish they can be more secure when they actually study in this program or in their school. And the second, for undergraduate students, they prefer more group work together to better engage with domestic students. And then you can see from these two suggestions that we gathered from our finding is that a different grade level for undergraduate student, undergraduate student and graduate student, they have all different needs and they hope for different services. And then the one that about the structure of the Stockman family building is one, the strength that bring the engagement experience, which we suggest to continue maintain that, but also improve the spatial arrangement for in-person interaction. And also, they could consider adding some non-academic activities to the school events besides the lectures. And then it would be great to include some international case studies or cultural appreciation in the curriculum. So these are the majority suggestions we get from our research. So what we really want to emphasize that is this project is started with our personal experience as international students in the field of arts and design that we felt a lack of attention. And then based on this, we started with the research, and the research informed a public engagement and also informed the actual school activities. And then after that, we have all what the finding and can give to the Stockman School. So this is the overall of our project. And then I think our presentation, yes, I think it's 20 minutes. We've done this presentation. And here is the Q&A section, and please let us know if you have any questions. You can also send email to Ray and my email too. And here's my website, and here's the QR code for the our project website. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Oh,
Love
thank
your
you.
whole presentation. Does anybody have any questions for Ray and Young?
Yes, I see one raising hand.
If that's me, yes, wonderful. This was beautiful. It was so divine in its beautiful, complex simplicity. And I understood this from beginning to end as an expertly thought out, mindful, thoughtful presentation. So thank you both. I have a question for the two of you, Ray and Young. What is your personal experience? Because I'm rising above this presentation because the two of you actually did a collective group from two different departments with a surprise department coming through with graphic design. So what have you emerged with?
Thank you for the question. Ray, you want to go first?
I think I can. So I think, to be frankly speaking, this is the first time that I had this collaborative project at Stockman. So most of the time I feel like the way that we structure this project and the way we think are very different. Like when we small things, like when we develop this presentation, like the PowerPoints, we always have like different, like maybe the opinion around this, whether we should use this term or the other term, or maybe we should include this illustration or the other way around. For example, if we look at there was one slide that showing illustrations about who are the participants. So what I normally do is just put a table on it. But Yang really bring this up, saying we need to use a simple way to let your audience to understand who are your participants. So this is a small example, but it really shows like how we think about presentation, how we want to reach out to our audience. So I feel like I've learned a lot from Yang. Yeah, for sure. And also I want to say thank you to Anna to bring us together, because this is the place that I met Yang. Yeah, and I enjoyed the graduate online teaching practicum. Yeah.
Yes. So me and Ray, we have a different personality in comes to collaborations. She's very practical. She did things very quickly, and I'm more like theoretical and conceptualize, like an artist who want to do things and so picky in details. So we did help, like try to how to both agree in a certain middle area that we can push this project forward. And to answer Susan's questions, like my interest always lies on the international education. So, and I always see the absences that the conversation about international students or international education in our field. So when we had this chance to do this project, I first just thought, oh, it's a great way that I can at least try to promote something. But how I learned throughout the entire project and is that you really need to get engaged with them to let their story to be heard. And then once we have all their voices and post it around, because we attack the building by putting all those quotes around the buildings so that no one can avoid seeing those quotes. I think that way their voice was heard and my intention also fulfilled. Because I do want them to bring this attention to know there are students here, they are trying to learn, they want to engage, and then don't miss that opportunity that you can have a cultural exchange conversation with them. So I just felt like I can actually do something, an actual project that with something that I've been working on. So it's just a great learning experience. Thanks.
I have
Yes, Susan.
just one quick question for both of you. What do you see happening in the future to this project? Is it going to continue on living? Are you going to hand it off to anybody to kind of reinvent it or continue growing it? What are the plans?
So myself, I am feeling that the opportunities are like open because for the public engagement event, we already collaborate with one of our graduate level student organizations called GREED, Graduate Research and Innovative Design. So it's a research-based student community, but they have helped us to organize this game time event because two of us are not enough to put this big event. So that was already happened in the spring. So we can see that they can take over this like this event content and put them into their regular organization duty. So yeah, we are looking forward to pushing this for the incoming year. But it also depends whether we can get like the continuous funding from the School of Arts and Arts and Architecture. Yeah, I think there is another question from Adam, which relates to this one, right? Yeah, I think in Stockman, we have several graduate level student organizations, like the one that I just mentioned, GREED. But I feel like we all have different focus. Like, for example, they are focusing on more research-based or lecture-based activities. Like this afternoon, they just held a resume writing group where students can learn on that matter. Let me look.
Well, and part of for me the question, it was interesting to hear the feedback about sort of mixed experiences and organizations that
Yeah.
via Chinese Student Association or to have that in comparison to something where your point of relation is, well, what do we have in common is we have our college in common, we have our school in common, we have our and so, I mean, I ask that partially in the context of Anna and I are on a subcommittee in CPAD, and we're thinking about sort of levels of community, and I'm realizing, it has me thinking about opportunities for community amongst graduate students within and across disciplines, and sometimes merely, and I it's interesting. Like as a teaching and learning unit, like I think I focus a lot on finding those kinds of purposes, but there are a lot of times when you can really just create space for people to connect with each other. And that's all you really need to do. And then you just sort of get out of the way. And so it's a good reminder. But I see that Crystal has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. That idea of creating space is actually a great segue, but I have a question about it in a different way. By the way, I don't know any of you. Well, I know Adam, I know Susan, I know Cookie, I know Anna. I don't know the graduate students, but I appreciate being invited to this really awesome event and appreciate the opportunity to hear your stories. And I work in a unit called Teaching and Learning with Technology. So that's kind of the perspective I bring. I'm an educator for a really long time. And I'm curious how the experience of doing this together, any aspect of it at all, you feel might change you, or how are you personally different as you think about becoming, future educators, or even as professionals? How will you be different by virtue of this experience? How will you create spaces? I guess that's the segue.
Do you want to go, or do you want? Okay,
Yeah,
I
you
can
can
go
go
ahead.
first.
Yeah. So as some of the project and some of the data that we find, I already have a certain expectation that could be something they would talk about based on the literature, based on being an international student myself. But I think what I didn't notice is that I do a lot of work with Ray in her office at the Stutman School. So I personally love the environment. I can see how that makes a great impact when it can bring everyone together. It doesn't matter which culture you're coming from. That structure of the classroom and the building, it's really a mind opening of thinking this is a great structure for teaching, for learning. So if there is anything, I start to really think about, so how I'm going to structure my class. Should I move around my tables, like within a particular classroom? Should I put my student in a group? What would be a good place to have them openness for them to talk when they work studio works? So these makes me to think, if I'm going to teach students and with a student, either domestic or international students, how would be the best way to really bring them all together? Should I pair them up? Should I have like a cultural conversation? So these are the questions I've been thinking while working on this project as well. And I think in the benefits of being in the art is a lucky way to really have this rich cultural conversations that can visually to exchange idea and thoughts. Sometimes that language barrier may not be able to well bridge those concepts. So yeah, it also gives me this thinking in my curriculum, in my lesson plans, and the topics as well. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm just confused about the question. So when you mentioned how do you create a space, do you mean the physical space or just like in general?
Maybe any
Okay.
sort of space. How do you create the opportunities for these good experiences to happen?
Okay. Yeah, so if I were for example, if I were to redo this kind of project, I guess I might still stick to the surveys and interviews, sort of start understanding what they need and what they prefer, and then based on their needs and preference and wants, and I can sort of initiate the projects, like try not to give any assumptions like, well, okay, those are the needs for the international students, because I feel like I'm so lack of the knowledge about this community. Yes, I'm not focusing on my own research is not about international student education. I think that's what Yan can bring to the table. So that's why I invite her to be the part of this project. So yeah, since I feel like I'm really lacking of the knowledge, so that makes me to want to understand this community. Yeah, even though I'm part of this community, like I'm an international student, I'm from China, but I feel like there is always the variations regarding people's personal preference, like what type of activities you want. So, for example, if I were to answer these surveys, I think I will also click the casual gatherings and also some scholarship and grants. So I feel like it's always depending on the level of the understanding to the community that you want to work with and or you want to provide a service with. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so glad that Ray and Yang met at the practicum. I think Ray was taking it as a student and Yang came in as a presenter because she completed it in the past. And she was sharing her approach to providing effective student feedback. And I just love how these connections take place. And for me, that's what the practicum is about. It's a place to create community for the graduate students within the college. And it's been such a pleasure meeting everyone and getting to know them. And I hope it can continue growing. And as you mentioned, Susan, creating that space for graduate students within CPAD would be so amazing. So I'm so glad that the two of you met and created this beautiful project, and it's beautiful conceptually and visually. It's such eye candy. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see how it continues growing and helping people. So thank you very much. And we're going to move on to Maggie's presentation, generating participatory glitch art in the classroom. And I will let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to be here. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. Okay. Everybody see my screen all right? Okay, great. Just a second. Okay. Hello, hi. I'm Maggie Condit Summerson. I'm a second year PhD candidate in art education and women's gender and sexuality studies. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and an educator, and I'm really interested in issues surrounding media visibility, the politics of looking and the gaze, neoliberalism and how it circulates in digital culture, and affect and the body, and how I explore all of these connections through my art practice. What I wanted to ask first before I really get into presenting is anybody familiar with glitch art? Is anybody involved in making glitch art, or have you done that in the past? No? Okay, that's all right, that's fine. Today I'm going to share with you a workshop on creating glitch art that recently took place in an undergraduate class that I'm teaching called Art Education 225, Diversity, Pedagogy, and Visual Culture. So students in this class are exploring interconnected themes like race, gender, disability, etc., by examining contemporary activist artists and critically analyzing the popular culture that they're surrounded by and that they're taking in on a day-to-day basis. And they're also able to engage in several art-based assignments, which is really fun and exciting because the majority of these students are not art or art education majors. So this is like not a typical experience for them in their own kind of academic work. And I really love to see the kind of things that they produce. And I'll premise my talk by saying that I am by no means an expert in digital technologies. And I think that that's valuable because you don't need to be an expert to generate like exciting glitch-based works or to introduce these concepts or processes in the classroom. So during this talk, I'll provide you with some resources at the end, and with time allowing, at the end, you'll get to try out some of these processes yourselves. So this GIF here on the slide is from a recent-ish photo series of mine called High Viz. And I created this GIF effect, or this glitch effect in a demo for the class using the same resources that I'll provide to you. So my interest in this subject really comes from encountering the work of a writer and curator named Legacy Russell. And Russell's the former associate curator of exhibitions at the Studio Museum in Harlem. And she's currently the executive director and chief curator of experimental new media art and performance at The Kitchen, which is an amazing art space in New York. And she's been developing this conceptualization of what she calls glitch feminism since around 2012. And she officially released her manifesto on this subject in 2020, which is the book cover you see on the right. And this examines the work of several contemporary artists, predominantly artists of color and queer and trans artists who deploy glitch as a critical tool for social intervention. So for Russell, glitch is really about more than this like seductive aesthetic of colorful or jagged or rearranged pixels. Rather, glitch is about symbolic and literal gestures of disruption and refusal, embracing the error as a tool for questioning and specifically questioning kind of the normative. And so her work is really drawing upon Black feminist and queer and trans scholarship and activist work. And I think that her framing of glitch is important to cite and to keep in mind, because a lot of the public discourse surrounding glitch art, which is often talked about in relation to like post-internet art or post-digital art, is fairly depoliticized and tends to focus on glitch as solely like a formal aesthetic. And it also really tends to be centered on cisgender heterosexual white men as like the prominent producers of glitch art. And so Russell is, challenging that. Glitch is often talked about as like in relation to like queering strategies or focusing on like transformative qualities. So in the 225 class, the glitch workshop followed a unit where we were looking critically at issues surrounding digital surveillance, algorithmic bias, performative activism on social media. And so I really wanted to challenge them to think about these issues while creating glitch works, to really think about like what should be glitched, what should be intervened on. And so while I wanted them to, on the one hand, experiment with this technical process, I also wanted to see if they could follow Legacy Russell's thinking about kind of going beyond glitch as a formal aesthetic. So to help facilitate this process, I asked them to spend some time self-reflecting on their kind of own relationships to digital culture and to social media, and post their thoughts to a shared Lino board, which you see here. I use Lino a lot as a tool. I really like it. I like the kind of collage effect. You can add like links, images, videos. So I gave them questions to respond to. It's a little bit hard to see because everything's all smushed together here, but these were my questions. I gave them some options. My favorite one is, how do you feel when you're scrolling? So I'm trying to get them more in touch with like this sort of affective component of digital culture. What is their situating themselves in relation to all of this? So if you were to comb through these responses, you'd see that many expressed feeling a sense of enjoyment in being connected to others and having access to vast amounts of information, but many also expressed experiencing anxieties, harmful feelings of self-judgment or inadequacy, especially related to like women's body image. That comes up a lot. So a sense of social disconnection and frustration with various forms of toxic messaging that circulate so much in digital culture. So, the idea of the workshop is really to think about these feelings that they expressed, and how might you create a visual representation of some of these experiences using this glitch process. So I showed them some early examples of glitch art. And this was to help show that there's like a historical root of these kind of processes that predates the internet. So this is a Namjoon Pike piece. He's often referred to as like the grandfather of video art, but much of his work, if you've seen it before, utilizes TV sets. So he would adhere these giant magnets to TVs, and the visual you see here on the screen, like the signal being interrupted by these magnets. And this works from 1965, so perhaps much earlier than you would think glitch art had emerged. And then this is a piece by Jamie Faye Fenton, Raul Zaritsky, and Dick Ainsworth called Digital TV Dinner. And Jamie Fenton is a queer and trans computer programmer and game developer, and they created this this piece using the Bowie Astrocade gaming console. Did all these kind of manipulations of this gaming console to produce these like interesting geometric patterns. So this is just a still from that. So those are sort of more process-oriented pieces, but I also wanted to show them some examples of glitch art that's more of this like conceptual utilization of glitch. So this is a piece by American artist. It's a pseudonym. This is a screenshot of this work hosted on the Whitney's website, where the images of the museum's collection were replaced with images of plywood in order to protest the institutionalized anti-Blackness and colonial practices of the museum. So this artwork is symbolically and literally boarding up the museum and the website in order to have this act of redaction and refusal. So glitching the archive and the histories of violence that come along with this archive. Let's see. This is a work by Sandra Perry. So this is an immersive installation. And this was hosted at the Serpentine Gallery in London. And what she did was this piece is called Typhoon Coming On, which is in reference to a very, very famous painting by the Romantic painter named J.M.W. Turner. He's a British painter. And this work of his, Typhoon Coming On, was depicting a massacre of enslaved Africans in the Middle Passage. And so she took like the palette of this image and projected them in the round in this immersive space. And the painting, the image of the painting was filtered through a software, an open source software called Blender, which is a 3D modeling software. And she applied this effect to it, an animated effect called Ocean Modifier, which made the viewer feel like they were, immersed inside the painting, inside this vast ocean. And as you're moving through the space, all of a sudden everything turns this bright violet hue. And this is a signal when you're creating something in Blender, if you've ever used this software, that there's missing information in the render. A glitch has occurred. And this is suggesting to the viewer that there's missing information in Turner's representation of the violence of the Middle Passage, that there's that this kind of authorized colonial white account is not the entire story. And so she's refusing or interrupting this story. This is a very cool artist, Tabitha Vizer. This is a piece called Sorry for Real. And she creates these, kind of glitchy, internet-based video works that really challenge the West as the kind of epistemic center of digital culture. And she really is asking, can the internet still be a place for dissent? So she's challenging kind of the rise of techno-capitalism and digital colonialism. So this piece is this like satire piece with this insincere apology that gets narrated from like a computer voice from the Western world. And so she's really talking about issues of white fragility. And then this is a fun kind of more pop culture example. This is a Berlin-based drag artist named Hungry. And I think of this as kind of glitching the body. Hungry's drag is intended to refuse legibility according to these kind of normative ideas about gender, sexuality, or even the distinction between, the human and the non-human. And so they're kind of glitching the body, interrupting this type of legibility, embracing the error as a site of creativity, and masking themselves using these motifs from like insects, fungi, plant life. So students thought this was a really exciting person to look at. There's such interesting images. So I included their Instagram on here if you want to check them out. Oops, okay, so this glitch art unit took place over a week, which was 3 class meetings, each around an hour long. And we had spent time watching videos about processes for producing glitch art, discussing these different ways of thinking critically about, what is glitch, and looking at all of these artists that I've shown you and others. So they had about 1.5 class meetings to just spend time working on producing these kind of experimental works themselves. And at the end of the final day, we had a group discussion. So I created a gallery using the Canvas discussion feature where they could post the outcomes of what they had been working on, their experiments. And that was a really, I think, effective way to have students submit images and kind of take ownership of sharing the work, is creating a Canvas discussion gallery space. And although I really encourage students to try to push themselves conceptually, I did have many students that created glitch images of their dogs, which you can see here, or found images of dogs. But I think that's okay, because they're learning about this technical process. And I think that there's, still pedagogical value no matter what type of images they're choosing. Because I think that I have this suspicion that creating these glitched images can help learners enhance their understandings that images are constructed out of these aggregates, massive aggregates of data, these huge compilations of cultural information. And I think that's symbolically significant, because I think it can help potentially make visible the ways in which, dominant cultural images or narratives are socially constructed over time, these compilations that accrue of all of this information over time. And so using the tools of glitch, learners can enact agency over all of these images and the cultural signifiers that they contain, and hopefully embrace or seek out the flaw as this desire, or the failure as a creative place of expression, a desirable form of social critique. But I also did observe several of the students starting to really think playfully and intentionally about the relationship between the form and the content and what they were producing, in terms of the images that they're selecting and the effects that they could achieve through this particular process. So for example, in this work, this student noticed that the kind of effects that they could use to create these long pixelated lines across the image had a relationship to like the horizon line of the landscape. Or here, a student took this image of the cast of Friends, and the medium was sort of the message here. They applied this like static TV scrolling effect. Or this student here who applied this like liquid undulating filter that sort of gives like a beer goggles effect. And so they're starting to get kind of playful, and they're joking around a bit with what they could achieve, which I think is starting to get to an interesting place. And then there were students who made much more directly politically engaged work. So this student, for example, selected Taylor Swift as this image of normative white femininity. And this is supposed to be a moving image, but for some reason it's not working right now. But this was her way of critiquing the oppressive beauty standards that have affected her personally quite a lot. And then this student had this very elaborate concept along with this GIF that was about composting as this metaphor for breaking down caste-like class structures symbolized through this pyramid-like shape of this poop emoji. And so it was like a very elaborate compost metaphor. And I also just thought that this image was very funny. This was like the first one that got posted to the gallery, and enjoyed that very much. So these are some tools or some resources that I'll copy and paste into the chat if anyone's interested in checking some of these out. And then I think we have a few minutes left. Oh, I wanted to note. Okay, so these two up here, Photomosh and Snorpy, very easy to use. That's why I labeled them as, quick, easy, immediate hex editors. The way that these work in a nutshell is you take an image file, you save it like a JPEG or a PNG, and you resave it as a .txt, a text file, and you can open it back up and you delete and add, letters, delete information in the code, and then you resave it. And when you open it back up again, you get these surprising, unpredictable glitch effects. So that's a process a lot of people use. So you can like insert subliminal messages into the code and then resave the image, which is interesting to do. These are two useful guides for additional processes you might try out. There's a number of free apps you can download for mobile to make glitch-based works, but I didn't really feel comfortable recommending students do that because I wasn't really adequately able to vet, like, downloading a free app, what sort of data collection is occurring on those apps and that sort of thing. So I steered away from that, but they are out there. I also created this Lino board link that I'll pop into the chat that has this is what it looks like. And you should be able to, if you want to try out glitching any images, those two top examples, Photomosh and Snorpy, I believe they both work on mobile, and you can use, you can very easily create glitch images. So if folks are asking questions and you want to spend a couple minutes trying it out yourself, you can post the results to this Lino board if you would like. But that's what I had to share. Thanks.
Great presentation.
Very
Maggie.
muted.
Great presentation, Maggie. Thank you so much. I think we have a question in the chat from Adam.
Let's see.
My question was really just about how I'm curious as to what extent like student process was transparent and like to each other in terms of discussion. It's that's something that always fascinates me. Like I love in books seeing like even like a static work through multiple stages or multiple iterations. And so I think it would be interesting to see sort of, and the way that it strikes me, there's some element of chance almost in terms of how the glitches sort of develop. And I'm curious how the students reacted.
Yeah, so there's definitely a very large element of chance, especially when you start getting into more of like the hex editing. You don't really have a huge sense of control of what you're going to get out of the image. As you start doing these processes more and more, some people get really well versed in like what they're able to do and have a bit more control. In terms of the students kind of sharing the process of what they did to create these works, a lot of them actually did like a before and an after post on the Canvas gallery that we created. So they post the original image they selected alongside their glitched image, which that was, I thought, really, I didn't ask them to do that. I didn't think to ask them to do that. They did that on their own. And I think that was a great choice. And a lot of them, they had time. I was like playing music in the classroom and they would just hang out and get to experiment with these tools. So a lot of them worked together, worked in groups, asked each other for help. And another, really beneficial part of this process, I think. Yeah.
I have another 10,000-foot question.
Okay.
Do you, Maggie? I mean, I've been around for a really long time. And do you observe perhaps this genre or this ability? Is this performance art for technology?
That's a really great question. And that's very interesting because I do a lot of performance-based work in my practice. So I like that question. Yeah, I think you could definitely say so. Wow, I really need to to think about that. That's
We will contemplate.
yeah,
Contemplate.
yeah. The machine performing. Yes.
Oh, more to come on that.
Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much, Maggie. I think you did such a great job showing to the students a really wide range of examples and perspectives. It was really interesting. Like when I looked at some, I think I see fiber in everything. So some of those glitch pieces look like tapestry and
Yeah.
rugs and, hand woven pieces, because a lot of them, when you look at the repetitive patterns, do look like glitch art. So that's what
Actually,
I was thinking about.
funny you should say that. So the artist Philip Stearns, who created the compilation of resources that I linked on that page, he's actually a textile artist, and so he turns these glitch patterns into textiles that then get used to make like clothing and all sorts of things. So
Oh,
totally.
that's perfect. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maggie and Ray and gang. Yes,
Thank
still in a
you.
meeting, but almost done. Thank you so much for being here. We hope to have more exciting presentations coming in the fall, and I hope all of you will be able to join us. More information coming soon, but thank you for being here and showing your passion and your research, and it's been such a pleasure and an honor and getting to know you and more about it.